Hello. In the second match of Group C, we had a match between Vincent Keymer and Daniil Dubov. Let's see what happened. We had a Slav defense. And Keymer chose here e3. In comparison with knight c3, it's lesser played. Black has lots of choices to go for semi-Slav or to go for this open Slav with dc4 and a4, bishop f5, and this is the critical variation. But he went for calm e3, bishop f5, and now knight c3 by white. Also bishop d3 is possible, but after taking e6, black has a very solid structure. White is still slightly better, but black is very solid with this structure, like in the Caro-Kann. So he went for this, e6, and now knight h4. White goes for the bishop pair. The bishop cannot avoid being captured. Bishop g6. I think also a move like bishop e4 is possible here to provoke f3, weakening the king side. Let's say this, and then to go to g6. Bishop g6 immediately is also perfectly fine. Takes, takes, and bishop d2. Dubov finishes developing by knight bd7, queen b3, and now queen c7. He puts his queen on a good square and also tries to hit on h2. White takes, ed, and now he castles on the queen side. He can afford to lose the h2 pawn because the b7 pawn is still not under protection, so black tries to generate some play on the queen side by a5 to push these pawns on the queen side and to somehow open up white's king. Queen goes back to c2, anticipates some pawn pushes on the queen side, and also wants to stop b5, because after b5 now there is a very simple knight b5. The downside of this move is that black can capture on h2 now. There's no pressure on b7, so you can capture like this. Black is a pawn up, but still, white has a bishop pair, and it's not clear where the king is going. Is he going to the queen side? Is he staying in the center? Also, the issues with the pawn structure. The pawn structure on the queen side is not so flexible because of these double pawns. Now white plays first a3, tries to stop bishop b4 and to hold the control over e4, which is very important in case he wants to push e4 at some point. Bishop e7, and now king b1. Knight b6, and now he's heading towards c4. The knight on d7 didn't do much. The alternative could be maybe to go to f8 and d6, but it's questionable what the knight is doing on e6. Maybe it's just holding some squares, but it's quite static. On c4 it might become much more useful. Now white plays f3, tries to stop any knight e4s or to start pushing e4. Now Dubov plays knight c4 and Keymer calmly plays bishop c1. Prepares maybe king a2 with b3 to kick this knight away, and Dubov plays b5. He tries to complicate the things as much as possible. But now Keymer strikes in the center with e4, and you can see that the d5 pawn is now potentially a liability in the position. He would like to exchange this g pawn for the e pawn, to have it here, because in that case the d5 pawn would be under so much more control. And that's why Dubov tries to kick this knight away to release some pressure from d5, and he plays b4. But it was better to go for rook b8. And in case of taking, to just capture back, hold everything together. And then go for b4 next and try to make a counterplay. But maybe what he didn't like in this position is that after e5, knight d7, e6, black is very shaky here, because what can you do? Next is going to be bishop d3 targeting g6. If he doesn't take, let's say, this, bishop d3, and the g6 pawn is quite shaky. Maybe that's something that Dubov didn't like, and he played for the madness. He played b4. But now Keymer has a very, very nice in-between move. He played queen i4, hitting on c6 first, and now black is not able to capture because of queen c6. black has to take care of c6 pawn. And he plays rook c8. And now Keymer took on b4. Also here knight d5 was good. And after this, e d5, now the knight hangs on c4, so it has to go back. But after capturing here and a4, keep in mind you have to close the position, because if you keep it open like ab, bishop b4, it can become quite messy, and white doesn't want that. He wants to just create a passed pawn. So he took on b4, which is also quite fine. Bishop b4 and now knight a2. Bishop goes back to e7 and now bishop c4. Take it. And now d5 by Keymer, which is premature. It was better to go for rook d2. And the reason why? Well, there's no help for this pawn. And the g2 pawn might hang, so you have to defend g2 and then to take on c4 and have a really nice game. But he played first d5 and now king f8 by Dubov. Here it was possible to capture on g2. And maybe something that seemed dubious to Dubov was d6. But after bishop d8, although it seems a bit shaky, the structure of black is very, very unstable. But after, let's say, e5, knight d7, e6, to try to break these pawns somehow, black would capture, and after queen c4, king f7, it seems like black can hold this, even though it seems quite scary because every single pawn is a pawn island. So king f8 was slightly worse. Keymer took on c4 and now queen c7. Now it's a bit different if you capture on g2, because after d6, bishop d8, when you compare this line with the previous one, now after queen h6, queen h3, knight c3, now white is slightly better because he always has this idea of d7 and it might become really unpleasant for black. Let's go back to the game. I think it's more logical to get the queen back to c7 now to defend the remaining pieces. Now Keymer took, and now we got massive exchanges, after which the a5 pawn became a target for white. Rook a6, knight goes to d3 in the next few moves, king e8, and now bishop c3 first, trying to make this knight on f6 passive because of g7 pawn, a4 by Dubov, and now king a2, trying to meet a3 by b4. And now Dubov chose the moment to play g5. And g4 in this case would be, I think, too much because it weakens the f3 pawn without any good reason, I would say. And also it's questionable if it does anything, because after, let's say, knight d7, do you really want to capture after f6? The bishop is stuck there and there's no way to get it out. So with g4 you just weaken f3 and I don't like it that much. He played knight d3, but it allowed g4 to somehow fix this structure. He undoubles his pawns and Keymer exchanges one more light piece, and the material becomes so reduced that its tendency towards the draw becomes more and more evident. Knight d7, f4, rook c6. Now he tries to get rook c4, attacking both bishop and pawn. That's why bishop c3 was played, and now knight c5, hitting this pawn on e4, rook d4, knight e6, and now we have a exchange of pawns. But now bishop g7 is played, and white is a pawn up. But like I said, the material is so reduced that it's tough for white to convert this advantage. Black can even get into some endgame rook and bishop versus rook. He needs to just exchange this pawn for this one, and then to grab the b pawn with the knight. And that's the whole recipe for a draw. So first he goes f6, tries to make this bishop passive. Bishop h3, knight d3, and now he wants to go f5 next. He wants to go f5 next to exchange these pawns, hitting the bishop. Now the problem is that after bishop e3 there is rook c2, and also ideas like rook e2 come to mind. On the next move, it's tough to advance here. So Keymer plays rook d4 here, rook a6. Now Dubov sacrifices the piece, king b2, and now f5. eliminating the remaining pawn. And after bishop d2, he took. And after this, Dubov showed a really great technique in this endgame. Really good defensive technique. And I don't know how... Keymer tried for about 40 moves, but he couldn't break through. After this, rook d2 was a very nice touch. After rook a7, king d8. He's not allowing king to get to the 6th rank to deliver some checkmates. King c5, king e8, and he shuffled a bit. Now we got the same position, but from the other side. You'll see in a moment. Yeah, now we got a similar position, but from the other side. And yeah, now we got, when you rotate the board, you get this position. And it was just the same defensive technique. Just don't allow king to get to the 6th rank, and everything's gonna be fine. And in this position, they agreed to a draw because Keymer saw that Dubov's technique is perfect. If you got any questions, please let me know in the comment section down below. I will get back to you and see you soon. Bye.